Alright, 당한 가서 안 장주심 냠렌치알라 장주심 줄게 고고래. 저는 다 장주심 줄게 봐라 장주심 게 냠렌치에게 탑대다 균제 맹아 둔유고네 냠렌치 오래서. 디네 자당 저게 아심제 담제 당유 고미야다 마시에 바틴 템바 아니 진 바틴 소와 삼다된 잠바데 니지고 다 잠바 니지고 맞은 이 말이가 안 가르고선 하산은 나기 오래서 하산 남다세야디 심제 담제 대바데 덴바데 니지기 심제 담제 동안다 동안 규단 자와데 니지기 심제 담제 대바다 대위 규대 대바데 니지기 세비다 돈 더드나 심제 담제 코비 동안레 저제 야상예슬 니 고기 세비게 삼로직 아니 디게 오래서 디 하산 남다레스 디 다 데니 개바이나 데니기 아니 셈리양아 저 지게 강아까지 태변 될래 닝도 휴식기 고 셈리 닝도 기고레스 어두시네 안디 공고레서 가서 가서 다디시루와 닝도 기고레제 강아 태에 셈젤래 가서디 까지 강아까지 태변에 셈리야 마슌바시 닝도 기고레제 진짜 닝도 고야디 게치 버레서 가서 가서 디고시루와
Good morning. So we're continuing to look at how to generate bodhicitta. So having already come to recognize the need to generate bodhicitta, we're looking at one of the two methods to cultivate it, namely the method of the 6 causes leading to the one effect of generating bodhicitta. So we started last weekend last weekend we looked at the foundation to cultivate those 6 causes, namely impartiality, and thereafter, and now we've looked at those causes, recognizing all beings as being our mothers, or this close and intimate relationship we have with them, and and thereby the kindness they've shown us and the benefits beings bring into our life. Thereby, then thirdly, the third cause of generating the wish to repay that kindness. And how best to repay it? That reflection leads to the cultivation of love and compassion. And those are the first 5 of the 6 causes. And last night we looked at the final cause, that of the altruistic attitude of universal responsibility, or commonly translated as special intention. And this altruistic attitude is specifically marked by the determination that I will fulfill my aspiration of love and compassion, where love is the genuine yearning that all beings with whom I have a tender feeling, all beings without exception whom I have a tender feeling with, may they abide in lasting happiness. That is the mind of love, this yearning for that. And the mind of compassion is a yearning that all sentient beings, and again, all sentient beings one has this tender feeling for, may they be freed from suffering and its causes. The altruistic attitude of universal responsibility is generated when one determines to fulfill that aspiration oneself, takes that as one's own responsibility. I will do so. And what is it that one is committing to? I take it as my individual responsibility to ensure that each and every sentient being is guided so that they spiritually develop and achieve the liberation from suffering and in fact complete enlightenment. This is my responsibility. And to generate such an attitude in a way that's not a mere expression of words requires an incredible strength of mind, a strength of mind that is not overwhelmed by problems and obstacles, but rather transforms and works through them and is inspired to do so with joy and with the required perseverance. Then returning to the text where we concluded last night, starting with a new paragraph. The helping of others refers not just to giving food, shelter and so forth, but also relief from the causes that are the underlying basis of suffering, and to provide the conditions that are the fundamental root causes of happiness.
다 현나 판도 제제반이 있으면 다디가 소소를 당한 중에 semje 탐제라 펜버 두기 네 두기 semje 탐제라 펜버 두기 세비게 판도 제데 가르스네 지당 칼라 세다 네강라 소바 진바 잠마레스 지당은 아주 판도 제바라 칼라 제제 판도 제바다 디네 강바제라 둘로제라 판도 제바 요로와 다디기 다디 심전 탐전의 판도 지긴 세비 판도 두긴 세비게 세디 아주 하산 남다기에도 디 판도 제세디 내가다 세다 고로서 진바 고고르디 디점 말레스 네 세다 네마 네강라 소바 진바 점 민바 말레스레
Look at the first half of the sentence. The helping of others refers not just to giving food, shelter, and so forth. Here the practitioner has developed this determination to help others, to be of benefit to others. So this is not a unique thought amongst beings. Beings have the wish to help others. And usually this is expressed through helping materially, giving material aid. But here, in the context of the practitioner who has developed the altruistic attitude of universal responsibility, the assistance, the help, the aid that they specifically want to give is the aid that goes beyond mere material giving. This expression of the altruistic attitude of universal responsibility does not exclude material aid, but goes way beyond that.
난 예전 안에 많이 난다 가르에서 치료하다 다 가르에라나 동아기 시지 귤을 좋아 제바당스 지산 심전 탐지 동아를 주고 그래서 동아 매봐서 심전 탐지 동아를 매봐서 저거 심전 탐지 동아를 좋아 제발라 동아 영역의 규대를 좋아 지고 그래서 지산 동아기 시지 동아제 동아 영역의 시와 시험 자위 규 대를 좋아 제바당스 시지 귤을 좋아 제바
And then there's the specific way, or the dominant way, that someone has generated this altruistic attitude is determined to help others is expressed in the second half of the sentence, but also relief from the causes that are the underlying basis of suffering, and to provide the conditions that are the fundamental root causes of happiness. Here then, the practitioner has developed a determination to help beings in the most important of ways, to guide them to gain release or freedom from the causes of their suffering. Here then, the determination is to guide them in their spiritual development so that they abandon the causes for suffering and rather adopt or cultivate the causes for happiness.
지상 하삼 남나게 여도 심전 탐지 고유 동아를 자와등이 지긴라여도 세단 칼라단 둘로 점제바 점지 고유 동안을 자투야요 말 내가 되어서 그지 디기 준비네 안데 디기 안데 띵기 대와 톱투야 매바와 제가 데네기 고유 동안 타달을 조왕이 지긴습에 제발라 안 고유 동안 타달을 조와라 가서 고유 동안에 매바서 그래 디 매바서 발라 고유 동안 유리 매바서 그래서 귤을 조와지 그래서 don다디 송거와
The practitioner has generated the altruistic attitude of universal responsibility. They have the determination that they will guide beings to gain freedom from suffering and its causes. So therefore, while the offering of, say, of material aid, such as food and clothing, whilst necessary, when looking at the perspective that such a practitioner is engaging with, across the expanse of time, such offerings of material aid are insignificant. Whilst these are certainly needed for the time being, what is really needed by beings is to be guided so that they themselves can abandon the causes that actually cause their suffering.
심지어 남제 대화의 덴바된 해 지긴시 비 sometimes 대화 덴바세데 두로다 칼라 잠제네 대화의 중세 용어데 디기 땡기 대화의 룰레 두고 말아 제가 디긴 대화 용어라 디기디 용어게 규암 시세 자와디 가르에서 디주고 그래서 디기용의 규주고 그래서 디기기 시지 균남 튕기는 조규 디인서 제상 컨트롤이야 디기용의 규다 튕기는 바자체 컨트롤 규리 중바이나 사주고 규사주고 그래서 디기용의 규사주고 그래서 대사주바이나 디기 땡기 대화를 용 그래서 제상 디기 시지 균남 튕기는 조규 디인서
Going along with this understanding, giving of material aid will only lead to temporary happiness, minor, brief, fleeting happiness, especially when looking from this perspective across the expanse of time. What beings really need is to be guided to identify the causes of lasting happiness, of a happiness that is not punctuated by even a moment of suffering. And then they need to not only identify those causes, but to be guided in their cultivation. So this is what the practitioner who has generated this determination to lead beings to a state of lasting happiness, this is what they engage in. This is the primary offering they give.
지단에 가서 변나서 배샤반에 지단 지소나를 시그로와당은 지소나리아 지단 지소난 민남라 세규 진바잠 민버 소세 강발라 랑투비게 탑시 시윤 주기여바 따라서 지상아도 지소나리아 미강아르 주변에 강아시엘리아 고 두로다 칼라즘 제제되는 샤시바 멤버제 안델리아 코로나 시윤 롭종 제바이나 코로나 시윤 롭종 차이 될때네 뭐번도 코로나랑게네 지강아세야데 디기주요 제 두고요 반사 데니기 지소나리아 안 소수기 데니기 안 시윤 롭종 제제 코로나랑 강발랑 투바디 두신 지고로 와시오래.
The next sentence then gives an illustration that shows that this way of thinking, to a degree, is recognized in society. For instance, in society, we do not usually just give food and clothing to people, but try to educate them so that they can stand on their own 2 feet. So this is something we know in society, that while society will help alleviate immediate short-term suffering through giving material aid, also it is seen as of great importance to address the underlying causes of suffering and rather develop the capacity of beings to liberate themselves from suffering.
어디나 신당은 저기 전주신비게 냠린지 값소야 가르치고는 전주신비 냠린지 나도 양서 내가비 울봉을 저치 치용오보 진바자 민바 라니기 강냠소 랑거바다 라규기 제주네 강 도르거바남 시비 체도 최송구여세.
The paragraph concludes, similarly, in the Bodhisattva practices, one does not give persons temporary material things to relieve them of poverty, but also teaches them so that they themselves know what needs to be adopted in practice and what must be discarded from within their behavior.
제가 전주신비게 냠린지리 qabla 안에 가르는 거라서네 안에 내갑기 울봉 그저시스 내갑다 집 칼라사다 두로미바 강아 여반에 될야 안 로강 도두제디 디레 코 내갑기 초 내갑기 울봉을 줘야다 강아서야 되지 안에 징오버 돼서 진바 대점기 디고버선 대점기 디고 말에 가르세나다 코롱을야 디규두베게 규사야 당 누가야 규디 매버서야야 안디 콜이야 탑시 파 람딘 제고 그래서 그래 제가 라니유 강 냠소 랑거바 시즈 라니게 마오반 디규야야 규 삼로 가라가라 땅 거바디 데네데 땅 고그리에서 콜이야 롭된 제들이에서 냠소 랑거바다서 다 랑기 제주에 강 도르거바 남 시베치도 최순고에서도 제상 소소게 제주 삼로 나려야 삼로 가르코고래 제상 되차 홍조 아게 개변에 디기 류가게 쩌바데 멤버 야고 누가 지래 델라티나 라신이가로 동호용고 제가 제주 랑유기 제주 갈 매바서 거래서는 랑유 대샤 공동하게 녀모바티기 매바서 거야지 디매바서 고래서 돼 근데 람든 두신 나데 람든 디시 거래서 디순 거래지 디레도 나 제가 돌아와서 돼 랑유기 대샤 공동하게 녀모바티기 빵고 그래 돌아서는 매바서 거래서 냠솔랑 고구리에 세대 냠솔랑 고구리에 세대 대화용의 규 가르 열에 디삼로 디다이 파 삼로 장고를 세대 디와 잠 이제 잔주심 진배 냠내 삼로 수줌이 삼 데네게 삼로 디게 데네데네 삼 땅고구리에 세대 셈 야가 냠는지 릭데 데네데네 냠내 제고를 디소 벤 수줌 송고를 세다 녜중 곰고를 세버 저잠 이제 곰 잔주심 곰고를 데네게 냠렘 리바디 파두스 냠는 제고를 디소 셈 곰곰바 곰고를 세파 롭된지야다 당아주기라 강아제야디 되자 공동하게 뇽몬버리게 델라티네 류하게 제주한 벌리고래 대수파매바서 고래스 뒷방고래서 두신에 대수파 예와체 시에는 고슬레시 손 템발람 템바텔 최송바서 된송고래지래.
Looking at the sentence, the first point to make is, similarly, in the bodhisattva practices, one does not only give persons temporary material things to relieve them of poverty. So we must understand from this that the bodhisattva does give material aid to alleviate the temporary suffering of beings. The bodhisattva does do this. However, the bodhisattva doesn't see that as being anywhere near sufficient. Rather, the primary focus of the activities of the bodhisattva, their mental activities and thereby their speech and physical behavior, is expressed in the rest of the sentence, but also teaches them so that they themselves know what needs to be adopted in practice. So here, the bodhisattva will guide beings to identify the causes for happiness and thereafter how to develop them, the method for developing them, such as, for example, cultivating love and compassion, how to recognize what is meant by ethics, what is meant by generosity, and so forth, how to cultivate the 6 practices in their continuum. So this will be the part of the primary focus of the bodhisattva, guiding beings to identify the actual causes for happiness and how to cultivate them. And going along with that, as the second part of the primary focus of the bodhisattva, guiding them what needs to be adopted in practice and what must be discarded from within their own behavior. Here, the second part, the bodhisattva will guide beings in helping them identify the causes of their suffering, namely the afflictions, anger, pride, attachment, jealousy, and so forth, and in the methods to abandon these. So we can understand the term here, behavior, as really being mental behavior and what results from that. So this is then what the bodhisattva's primary focus is on, in teaching beings, guiding them, whereas it's much more minor, that of offering of material aid, the temporary overcoming of suffering.
Nala teaching on the Dunga, Gudan Tawa Chekore, Dewa, and Devi Gudi Consola Lamdunji Keba Chekore, says Dirwa. Says Dunga Yonga, the Canis Yunguri said, Mazugula, Tuacha, Kondo, Nyomo Bashkebaina, Digi, and Kune Lange, Di Wangi Carson, Lunga, Gichubang and Bashligri, Ejede. That Shanle Tebe, the Shala Nubiki Java Ligure, Digi Nedu, Shanle Dunga Tigore, Dangan to get 6 Subotan. 동기 넘겨다 되게 돈에 샬라 채와치 녀바 제바나 샬라 누고르데 니 추지는 술레디 녀바게 링그로와 저 라라 강아리 거레스 안디메지가 소소라라야 콩로스게 바나 콩로게 바 잠이가 마기바다 베드 마토바 니쿠나 야고메 기쿠마데 마기바 강아티 거르자 동화용약의 규디 가레스는 묘모바디게레스 당은 세디잠나 삼다메나 라신이가라 강아 소소 칼라사야 되사다 마기바로 쇼데 다 모반의 삼다면은 디기가 저 레양안바 가서 컨트롤 되는 게 녀모잖아 디 녀모 샤완 소하지네 아니 샹리아 체위 자와 디니 제요도 아니 거 량아 바사 디 제부텔라 마오바나 나나 솔게야다 동거요 규레스 제나디 규레자 유디디 메바소 고레스 람데제야데셰 단 안저게 대화 두고 대위 규대 덴바디 콘도 람든 제고를라로와 전 대위 규디 가래라나 안줄리아 샹리아 판베선 바다 제위 삼바 아니 직 소수규 룽아 유스 니제 돈비규 추림 송야다 디네 제바이나 안 디기 아니 샹리아 룽아 그 제방 안바데 파가네 룽아 그 ton에 상비이샤 판바 리고래 제자 디네자 샹리아 판바데 제여도 샹디게 셈라 가랑라 게야다 안 디기 디기 두야다 안 샹코는 나주 젤레 판바 제제 셈 판지 샹다디에 가보 제여도 가보 제여도 어도 술에 어디 미디야고도 수신에 안 소소래 가보지고래 야 제야도 안 소소야 가라라 세디유스 다 소소 세디라 삼단데 네게 소소게 주림수야다 잠제고면 되는 삼단 소소에네 셈을 hlö시시 이제 셈을 강하면 다 디링이 디제바 빼고 중소 셈배 소소 가라나 여바 제가 디기디레스 내갑 삼다야다 디 모바다 삼바다 체치마다기 람고말 삼바다 제가 아주 녜조다 자주 셈데 대수야 공발에 되네 아니 잠니지게 발에 잔슈심게 대라 때는 아주 냠내 제발에 타라 산지고바 땡기 대와 도투고라 지상 아주 대와 용예기 규디 잠니지 내조다 잠니지 잔슈심라서 받아 아니 아주기 류가 이니체도 수dum소야다 진배 냠내 쇠배 냠내 대소 냠내 제데 대와 용 규리에서 어두스에는 아주 그때 라고야 제에서 돈다니 보디레도 와다 돈다니
This is an important sentence, so let's look at it again. This time starting from the back or the end of the sentence. The Bodhisattva will primarily focus on two aspects, the second of which, or one of which will be to guide beings to discard in what needs to be discarded from their behavior. So here, the Bodhisattva will guide beings to firstly recognize their suffering and its causes, to correctly identify the causes of suffering. That the cause of suffering doesn't lie outside of oneself, but within oneself. In particular, our afflicted minds. The Bodhisattva will focus on guiding beings to come to recognize within themselves, not merely intellectually understand, but to recognize this, realize this for themselves, and the chain of reactions that follows from the arisal of the afflictions. Harsh speech of varying types, and harsh or coarse behavior. Here the Bodhisattva will present the expanse of what follows from the afflictions, as well as the results that will later come from that, the harmful karma that is created. So the Bodhisattva will guide people, their students, to recognize that the mere arisal of an affliction causes one to suffer. And to the extent that one engages with that affliction, and thereby it grows in strength and will quite possibly be expressed verbally or physically, harm comes to others. For example, the mere arisal of anger, just that, causes one to suffer and may be expressed as one not being able to sleep well at night. Then the next day, one wakes up in a bad mood, overtired, and takes this out on others. What's happened then? Through the arisal of suffering, of anger, one suffers, one lacks sleep, and thereby speaks badly or acts badly towards others, causing them to suffer. Thereafter, now one will later experience the karmic results of the arisal of anger and its expression, perhaps even in lower realm rebirth. This is in terms of guiding sentient beings in what is to be discarded or abandoned. The Bodhisattva will guide beings to recognize this for themselves to the extent that they transform their way of thinking, recognizing that the mere arisal of afflictions is this time of great danger, and they need to be mindful of their own mind, take care of their own mind. And then this part of the sentence before this is teaches them so that they themselves know what needs to be adopted. So this is the companion training of guiding beings to recognize what are the actual causes of happiness. These too don't abide outside of oneself, but within. These are the cultivation of virtuous minds, minds such as ethical restraint, generosity, love, and compassion, and so forth. And to the extent that one cultivates these, oneself is happier. And to the extent that one expresses these, or firstly engages with them so that they grow, and then expresses them physically or verbally, happiness is brought into the lives of others. And then this too has a further chain or event in the chain of reaction, and that is the cultivation of virtuous karma, which leads to good rebirths and ongoing spiritual development. These two are the focus of a bodhisattva's endeavors. But also, and we see then at the beginning of the sentence, the bodhisattva practice, in the bodhisattva practices, one does not only give persons temporary and material things to relieve them of poverty. This then shows that the bodhisattva does give material aid to beings. This is not their sole or their primary focus, but the bodhisattva does do so, and the bodhisattva will do so with the determination that through this merit that I'm accumulating through, for example, this act of generosity, through this merit, may I be able to give beings what they really need, which is long-term happiness, ultimate happiness, not merely temporary relief from suffering, but ultimate relief from suffering, and thereby long-term happiness. So this is the aspiration with which the bodhisattva, for example, engages in material giving. And from hearing this, you can recognize the joy, the delight that will be in the mind of the bodhisattva when making such an offering. Moreover, they will also have the aspiration that through this connection, this virtuous connection that I'm making with this or these suffering beings, may I be able to guide them successfully in the future. May they be receptive to my guidance. So this then is the essence of what His Holiness is presenting here.
nani digi tuk mares na samla thanu gyuwa tangche na digi tuk gore je ta na samla gyuwa tangche de samla na yaksho de garres na nga juge semje tamje sanju ko bon tobar che chanju sem nyamlen che de di ani rashin nikala dewa ya ke di gyudi dires dewa zawi gyudi dires jesa di dubala ana juge anjige semje tamje lia ani niring meba samta niring 당념 고미하다 심전대자 언제게 마셔봐다 아니 진천보 임바 진천바드네 잠니제 장수 가서 학생남다 공부래서디 나주디 공부래서 숨이데 당아주래 대화용의 윤규디 디리에스 제산디 야 냠는 제고래서 숨고로와 지나다 대화용 규디레디 냠는 제고를 숨는데 당아주 잠제 공부래서 잠제 공부이나 디 도초 콘로디 라신지고 가르고로와 지사 디나신 심전 담제라 예링 매바 삼땅고로 공고래라 송요도 예링 매바고 땅용 공요도 심제라 예링디 상 지gle 야가 삼다 지gle 두아 삼다데 예링데 바 가르고로와 지사 동아요 규디게 라신기 도스네 뭐소 아저 냠렌제게 림바디 마 송요도 디 아니 디기두베게 규디디 냠렌제고래 송고로와 디 송요도 아 동아요 규념모 바데게 도초리바 라신게 가르고 그래서 세상한 줄이야 디 로펜나야디 띵한 줄 두스는 거로다.
Then how should practitioners such as ourselves, those who are still some distance from generating bodhicitta, take this advice? For ourselves, we recognize how bodhisattvas engage, and they are our role models. So we need to strive to recognize what they have come to see. And we start by watching our own mind, taking responsibility for our own mind, being mindful of our mental processes at all time, and together with this, cultivate knowledge so as to, in dependence on the cultivation of knowledge, our own mindfulness will have greater strength. We'll start to recognize an arisal of an affliction and immediately know this needs to be abandoned. This needs to be abandoned. It cannot be justified. even slight attachment, slight anger, I need to guard my mind against this. The afflictions are what cause me to suffer. Their expression, their mental engagement, and then their expression causes others to suffer. And going along with this, we recognize the causes of our suffering are our afflictions. They are not to be found outside of us. They are within our mind. The companion then is on the wholesome side, to recognize that the causes of happiness, again, isn't from other people or the world, the material world around us, but the causes of ultimate lasting happiness are to be found within our own mind. And therefore, not only do we need to guard against the arisal of the afflictions, but we need to ensure that our mind is staying wholesome, staying virtuous. And here then, in our meditations, we cultivate the qualities that have been looked at thus far, and we ensure that in our everyday life, these stay at the forefront of our mind. We've already heard the starting point, the foundation, is the meditations on impartiality, where we strive to overcome this feeling of closeness to some and distance from others. So when we cultivate a mind of impartiality, not only does it help to overcome this closeness to some and distance from others, but indirectly it serves to hinder the arisal of the afflictions. Because we tend to be more readily give rise to afflictions of anger and of that class towards those we are distant towards, and attachment and those of that class to those we are closer to. And as we continue in our training of wholesome minds, recognizing the close and intimate connection we have with others, their kindness, the wish to repay their kindness, love, compassion, and so forth, these all serve as not only to strengthen our wholesome minds, but to counteract, to weaken our afflicted minds. So therefore, the way we should take this advice is to take responsibility for our own mind, guarding it against the afflictions, and rather ensuring our mind stays virtuous at all times.
kuwe dunga gyudan rawa da nge chi yin simja damche dewa da dewe gyude tenpa da nge chi yin simpiga samlo hasan namda de kiye chayon du ande janshu simchini ki yirwa de nyamlin dene ki nyamlin cheke rinpa dene hasan namda gyula kiyekan dike kiye chayon ne di je la kare samdang go re sene gongpa kare shigoro sene chisanda dunga da rawa da nge chi yin simpiga samdang yodu dunga da simchingi dunga kanda yungudu dunga yoya gyudi kare yongdu sebekita da dunga da jawa da nge jigin samdang yodu dunga da jawa da nge jigin da je ja tugu ina mena sabek sam ligoro ja tugu ina mena chisa dunga seedi kanis meba syo gudu sabek samlo pa jeba yodu chisa dunga seedi kanis meba syo gudu dunga de kan yongthang yu kanis chin yongdu sebek do sizu ya jeba yodu ane dunga de le danga zo nyomo ba de yonggo ba de sha khonra nga jalo nyomo ba de ya nyomo ba de de kan ki gu sebe nga rashin ju ba simba de ki gu ba de 통고 de jeba che do sin 통고 시다 nga rashin ju ba simba de ki ya tong de da nga rashin ju ba simba de 로 체마지레베 로 노추시레 로 체마지는 고 메바 수투고 말에 로 노추 메바이나 수투고로 와 제사 되니 인사다 nga rashin ju ba singa 짐바 나신지 따따다 레다 말에서는 다 심주 제도 나 라신 주바텔라 땡제 삼다 제바지고 그래 제바지도 제제도 다 강점질라 나 라신 주바 자오이네 나와 나신 강라이마도 랑원 주바 나와 나신 디 자오이네 민두 선비가 동반이 동의도 되는 나 라신 주바 짐비 나와다 짐바도 로로셴바 통고래 로로셴바 통의도 다디 빵 투고요 봐 될래 년보요 봐 통내 뒤방 투구요 봐도 되네 방 투고 또도 어다 상지 공간에 기 투구도 미 심전 탐제래 되네 뒤템 바 있나 콘소 뒤고음 전에 매바스 투구도와 되네 인자 상지 공부 고발에 고 투구도 미 고발을 저 투사래 셈비게 되네 보고 인도 체기고 레지래 제시를 심전 탐제 상예설로 고고의 선고로 와다 그 투구제 투구민도 생고 삼거다와 제사 심전 탐지 누가 영화도 유가를 때는 연구도 새벽에 도스케지 녀모 발에 때는 이거도 녀모 바대야 간슬리고서 소소소 심전 소소소 수인에서 나 새벽 나진 지어래 될 때는 나 칼라사고 나 지금 나 콩랑도 뉴스인데 딜리도 나진 딜리고 그래 더 심전 소소 시고마다다 심전 제사 되니게 심전 되게 나 새벽 나 라지 주베 짐바 나시 나 칼라이마도 랑고 주베 nen고래 나와 나시 나디 요래 요 말에서 제바 지인들 갑라 나 라신 주베 동반이 또 거래서 동반이 또 해도 나 라신 주베 짐바도 오다 노트 로로시레 디방 투부도 디메바서야도 대님보도 세베 대방비 방보 여바디 통고래서 지난 대통령도 다 되니 semjan tanjo kowe dungada dunga gyuda jeba da tugudu sempege nido shini goreje
In this method to generate bodhicitta, bodhicitta is the goal, it is the result. To generate it, there is the foundation of impartiality and thereafter the 6 causes, hence the 6 cause and 1 effect method. So here now, the practitioner has trained the mind cultivating the 6 causes and has now generated the 6th cause, the final cause, the altruistic attitude of universal responsibility. So again, this is the mind that has progressed from, and one doesn't want to belittle the minds of love and compassion, but these love and compassion are merely at the level of a strong, sincere wish, but it's just a wish. May others abide in happiness, freed from suffering. The altruistic attitude is so much stronger than that. Here it is the determination that mere wish is insufficient. I will bring that wish into reality, and I will do so myself. That beings remain trapped in the bounds of suffering. It is my responsibility to ensure that they are guided to gain their own freedom from these realms of suffering. It's my responsibility. I will do so. So this is the expression of this strong will, this determination that characterizes the altruistic attitude of universal responsibility. Now, how is this attitude the final cause to generate bodhicitta? So here, having generated the altruistic attitude of universal responsibility, the practitioner looks with sincerity at the situation that beings find themselves in, coming to recognize what keeps beings trapped in samsara, bound within samsara, is they hold themselves to be inherently existent, to exist by way of their own nature or essence, and that from this all the afflictions arise, and the contaminated karma is accumulated, and they create their own samsara. Here then, the meditator continues to look at this, that this apprehending of the self as existing by being self-existent, existing by way of its own nature or essence, it's not a valid cognizer. It is a wrong consciousness. If it were a valid cognizer, it would be in accordance with reality and therefore couldn't be overcome. But it's a wrong consciousness and therefore can be eliminated by the cultivation of an opposing valid cognition. Then the practitioner has confidence. An antidote exists. It is possible for each and every sentient being to achieve the state of lasting happiness, the state of Buddhahood. It is possible. So this is the reflection, the meditation process that someone who has generated special intention or the altruistic attitude of universal responsibility goes through in order to go from the cultivation of the final cause to the result of bodhicitta.
Dus chene cheba chene dene janju semma je nyela dene ge nyamlen nangan juge da hasan namda ge chane janju semma je nyela ya dus cheba chene du mang chewa ge dongyi do go re janju semma je nyela dongyi do go re dene dongyi do be chela dene janju sem gi go re je mang chewa ge da khashi gansa khashi nan dongyi do ma do yung go re di gar do sen gansa da me rakwa di do go re je gansa da me rakwa do go re 그 심주지 제바치도 강사 때문에 라바도 그래서 다 돈이 도마도 돈 강사라 때문에 라바 가시가 망쳐하게다 동박이 또 그러지.
From my explanation in that segment, it should be clear that most practitioners who are at this level, which is when they're cultivating the causes for bodhicitta, so they haven't generated bodhicitta yet, they will have already realized emptiness. This is how they know that all beings can achieve enlightenment. So they will already have a realization of emptiness. And this is the case for the vast majority of practitioners. They will have a realization of emptiness before the cultivation of bodhicitta. Their realization of emptiness, in fact, aids their cultivation of bodhicitta. There will be some, though, who do not yet have a realization of emptiness. They will, though, have realized core selflessness, but not yet realized emptiness. But these are in the minority. The vast majority will realize emptiness, and emptiness will aid the realization of bodhicitta.
When that Hanjibarwa, the Hanzu Chitimbi, some Dabene, the Denma Chuchimbuchiovache, and they meet Semje in the me in the Bekanga, Pacho Matu, Ganga Chuban, or the Chupacho de Ni Kronpa, Niki in Sembigi, Niki was a killing Chebache, and Dingy was a big Samlo Chuchimbuchiobina. And then you could Denima Chupacho the Niki in Rokochi in Sembigi, and the Dele Pacho the Niki in Rokochi in Sembe, some Chuchimbuju, and the Garchigres and Dini Badela, Dene, Garchigres and Deneba Drosa the Cani to Zejitangrua. Sayidua, Canis Tasa, Denma Drosa, Samba Due Midu, Samba Mena, Canis Chin Drosa, Drosarism. Do Simju Chidu, Denma Drosa Yuba Tariadu, did Samba Yana, Samba Yuba Tonga, Diana, Samba Mena, Dentin Drona, Drosa Dua, some Toidu, they go Pajukiel de Simshu Cherugorwa. Jizadambo, Pat Miki in Kuro, me Rochi Pani Giggins and Dambo Kaden Bears, Miki is a Simshu Gear. Simshu Gear, and Drosa Hamona, Nagins and Chulchaya Maragora. Chesana didn't Nagis Drosa the Tazim. Tablam Caradu, this Patsi, Yaga Drosa the Cadito see. Didn't Tablam Yuba Drosa Ziodu, Tongodo, or Dadding in J to Saris and begin. Diazu in Dobla Mass on the chair in Gorua, and the Benediro, Dirua, and Dina Shing and Jigim Michige, Ganga Bear, Ganga Shuchubina, Kokangan, the Nika, the Kura Garden, Hissing in Labdu. Color social Tunguena, that Rongi Jiggins be killing Chesarwa, Dambo. She done socialia, then Color Cargo to get Carga jail some bits into that dinner, the social doom, Javacha, social Yoba not, the Digo Yoba Mena, the Jandas and the Tupsiada, teaching, and Janda Tupsi, the social Yoba, the Shangis and the Tupsi, Tablam the Ryan, the how go do. Then Uncle Robert Chickens have somebody, Shucheru, Boba Shucheru, a dinashin, Chiza, Tusin, Semjan Tanjo Korea, Dungale, dragging heat, Sanjis, Gogin, Sibi, Simshu, Kiwi, Chela, that Ganis go to say the Ganis Chevos, Jimjuji, Jeva Jeja, Dusu, Dongbani, some diet, and Yomo, Pantati, Chasa, how go you do? Didn't go round into Chetu or Essay, Dirwa.
What my hope is that you all have gained clarity on is that through training one's mind, there is a particular sequence in development of a strength of mind, a determined inner courage. So to give a very ordinary example, an example from everyday life perhaps, to make this point, if we consider there's a wide, fast-flowing river, and there are many people or beings who need to cross it. Someone may be standing there thinking, maybe everyone cross it. They need to cross it. Perhaps there's some emergency. They have to cross this river. May they do so. This is an expression of a wish, sincere wish, but that's what it is. So again, one doesn't want to deprecate this wish. Maybe beings be freed of the suffering of being on this side of the riverbank, but gain the happiness or the benefit that will come from being on the other side. And again, there's some perhaps emergency going on, but this is still just an expression of a wish. Then, if they have cultivated the right causes, this particular person will see that this mere expression of a wish on its own is insufficient. because beings remain trapped here. Something needs to be done. And they then, within themselves, they make the determination, they stand up and say, I will find a solution to this. I will not just sit here and let someone else solve this problem. I will do so. I will find a solution. So here is the next level. So we've gone from a compassionate response to one where one takes responsibility for the situation beings find themselves in. And what does this person then do? They seek a solution. Is a solution possible? Can we cross this river? And they will go upstream and downstream looking for a bridge or another solution. So here we see the progression of the strength of mind or the determination. They have got up and they are doing something with a clear goal in mind, motivated by that wish, their compassion. Then, when they see, perhaps in the distance, there is a bridge, it's intact, it's spanning the entire river, we can cross it. And they can see from there, even though they're at a distance, it is strong enough, it is broad enough, they then know freedom from this danger is possible. And now they will go back, help others to cross that river. They will have the determination to encourage others to, one doesn't want to say coerce, but let's say encourage others to follow them, to trust them, and take them to the bridge and guide them across. So here, hopefully it's clear, these three stages of mental development, which are about developing one's strength of mind, one's deep, courageous heart, a determination that a mere wish is insufficient. I will fulfill this wish.
Da denegi da jigo 닝톱라 마선을 하바도 당기지 심전담 저 고요 동안에 그 툭서리 탑람두 세베다 다 탑람두 되제 라신 템바지면 녀모베 님보 다음에 봐도 또 봐니 템바이나 콘솔레 템제 냠len 제주바이나 되네 냠len 제주바이나 니 콘조야 상지 살레고 그 투구도 선베기 안데니게 닝톱라 계요도 되네 디젤라 삼나 가르당 고라스네 아 삼나서 직리 고래 가르당 고라스네 다 되네기 semjelya tablam dunga seyege nyomo yinbo tenada denegi ande tablam komyage dewi gyu jamni je chanju sem nyamne rimba ande tempa delya ane dama ma tengu gorwa dan benanga zo mijilya kalaji jeina menigi ko biza sa dine do megenjila ngazu biza jebene ko sagmarwa 제가 어디가 생매서 내가 그시 렘바이나 아니 그 샤샤야 제조와 제가 당은 지금 말 칼라 제발라 코로나야 되바 가르도 가르서야 가사야 되바 가르도 가르치 투사래 누바 간스 두심비게 무슨 응외인데서 하고 제 콜리아 디체바이나 판도치 따따치 두고로 어디 나시 다 최냠는 곧 람든 제발에 디위 유파 냠는 제주야다 마 된된 제고라서 파 랍지 냠는 제주야다 뇨모베 니보 띠엔제 고 냠는 제주발라 먹이 심진기 감다 매바다 튠바디 땡고 거래 제가 심진 감다 매바다 하고 거래 하모가제 동반이라 되고 메겐들 동이 땡샤바이나 되는 로다 제주야 냥아 침보용 거래 제가 되네야 동반이라 되고 치고요 제 동반이마 땡바제 지 다음에 라포트 땡바이나 아다디 nga goya sigmed지 다 nga 최시와 루메스베디 킹만이야냐로바 어디나제 감나 매바도 튠비게 땡야당 아니 대한 땡야된 뒤셀 마서나 뒤게디 때네 야가 여봐 되네 감나 매바도 튠바 뒤다 내갑다 차상 땡바 땡야디 하고 같이 땡바에는 편도 침보용 거래 제가 니 하고 고야디 땅안주 땡하고 문도 땡하주 땡야래 하고 고마 땅안 디 차상 하고 고 말했어 지사당 알이야 템발라 샹기 때네 데니게 삼단 띵고 고래서지 다 땡나들 데니시 고고래요 하스베 다 두신 제바치 고래
So here the practitioner has been meditating further on emptiness, recognizing that there is a method, there is a solution to the suffering that beings find themselves in. They can all attain liberation, enlightenment. How? Through the cultivation of the wisdom realizing selflessness, or the wisdom realizing emptiness, and its accompanying other realizations. And with this ascertainment, this realization, this great certainty that they have now generated, leads to a deep determination, a deep inner strength within them. And this then powers their varying activities of a bodhisattva, or engaging in their own trainings of a bodhisattva. And then how do they engage in the varying deeds or activities of a bodhisattva? Well, let's give this through, present this through an illustration. If the practitioner wants to make an offering to someone, and let's say they want to make the offering to accumulate merit or to be of benefit to that being, they think, I will offer them food, I'll offer them a meal, this will benefit them, I'll make a virtue, I'll connect with them, and through this I will be able to continue just to benefit them and others. Then they will give some thought. What is the appropriate meal? Many people like pizza, maybe I should give them pizza. But is what is generally enjoyed correct or most suitable in this specific case? And the practitioner will look and think, no, actually for this person, they never eat pizza. They show no interest in pizza. So I can assume they're not interested in pizza. Maybe they like something else. And they will investigate further and see what they do enjoy. And this is what they will offer. Then the person who receives the meal will do so with delight. This is what I really enjoy eating. Thank you so much. As opposed to, it's very kind of you to give me the pizza, but inside they are not so inspired by the offering. So here what we see is the practitioner is using their intelligence, thinking, how best can I help this person? Not merely going along with what their own understanding of what they think is best or what they like, but thinking about the being they're wanting to connect to or wanting to benefit. The way this is usually expressed is that the practitioner needs to come to know the individual disposition and inclination of beings, or to express that in a more ordinary way, a more common way, to come to know the individual personality of others, so that they can engage with others in concordance, in harmony, in agreement with each individual being's karmic background and individual disposition. And when the practitioner does investigation to act in accordance with beings' individual karmic backgrounds and individual disposition, their engagements will be beneficial, will be successful. So therefore, they need to come to recognize, understand beings, and be able to, thereby be able to help them precisely.
Lam Nyamling Rimba Tan, Tiki Lam Nyamling Rimba Patien la, Chisan Tienseki, Gansa di come down, Merba, Ganesh du Chasa, Yabo Hakoyata, then they do the Ganesh, do Ganesh Tina, Yaga Yung Panto Che Yung, but the Takoyata, Duita, Nekap Hakoya, and then Rimba Diki, Ganesh Timbana, Garini Leshena, Panto Che, Chasa Hakoyadi, the Niki Nengatike, Chasan Kem Hakoyana. Dinege tempada pando che yungore, jizan pando chimo yungore. Dinege hamoje, and the did Yagoya some che shabana, tembaina, Menigi come down meba the mutum baina, and the pando yungo marava, you to go, Gaso Lam Tiag, Doctor Litu, Marchesa Dinenza, do she come down meba down, and then Nerab down, do that Nerab Chasan Hako Wores, this Gachimortigo Waden.
And in terms of what we're specifically looking at here, the presentation of the Dharma, the illumination of the path and how to cultivate it, the skilled practitioner will tailor-make their presentation for the individual being or group of beings before them. This is the responsibility of the skilled practitioner, and they will do so with a wholesome motivation, wanting their engagement to be as successful as possible. So therefore, they'll think about the person or persons before them, their own personalities, their disposition, their inclinations. They will also take into account the time and the place. And then thirdly, so the disposition and inclination, the time and place, and then thirdly, what of the varying levels of training, which one to emphasize first? What will be the beings before them? What will they be most receptive to, inspired by, most likely to adopt within themselves? So this is clearly the best way to think, the best way to engage in helping others, to tailor-make one's engagement specific to the being or beings before one. Thinking of their personalities, secondly, the time and place, and thirdly, which particular level of training they would be most inclined towards. And this then is done aware of the needs of the beings before them, rather than just guessing or thinking of what's in accordance with one's own personality, one's own disposition, but placing the needs of suffering beings before one, the beings one is determined to help.
아니 대야 말와 미신들이 미션다게 되는 라이브도 세바와 렌게바 점이 판도스카요 말와 제가 소소라라게 신고고 그래지 제가 소소라라야 베네 잠바다 이제 장주sem다 동유세야다 내니게 탑람 냐람게 림바 냠내게 림바 가르가르 띵고 베네 소소라라 신고로 소소라라 신고고 그래지 제가 네 컨트롤에 가르가르 띵도 뒤스간에 야가도 세바 소소라라 신고고 그래지 제가 소소를 연텐고 그래 소소기 소소야 하고 받아 소소게 냠용 되니기 토네 아니 거 땡고 그래 제가 소소리아 연된디게 차상 되니기 니서 하고 가 신 컨트롤에 되네 야가도 되네 야가 뒤스 되네 야가도 되네 하디야 소소를 냠용 하고 소소기 되니기 최대리아 가르가르신 거 잠니지 때문에 잠니지 거 차상 하고 냠용여 받아 동이 거 때문에 동이 거 소소라 하고 냠용여 봐 되니 진바도 수르서 발라서 봐 띵인생라서 봐 때문에 차상 냠용여 봐 제산 소소기 냠용도 소소기 윤된 차상 여 봐지 아니 땡고 거래서 제자다 되니 삼는 당고 이바데 삼디리고 진짜 다디 윤된디게 소소를 두어민도 소소게다 가르가 창도에 창면 가르도 가르면도 소소를 두어민도 소소기 띠 삼는 지리고 그러와
Skilled practitioner such as this will think about those they have the opportunity to engage with, how to do so best in accordance with their needs. So that's what I just presented. The companion thought process that goes with this. So the first part is about those the practitioner wants to benefit. The second part of the thought process is about themselves. If they recognize that the beings before them, what would be most suitable is a particular teaching, they need to ask themselves, do I understand that topic? Am I actually the right person? Am I suitably skilled to guide them in this? Do I have the necessary inner qualities to guide them or not? So here, the practitioner, in the second part of what they're looking at, the first part was about the objects to be helped, the second part is the helper themselves. If they feel that the people before them would respond well to being trained in love and compassion, how well do I, now as the practitioner, know about the various stages of training to generate love and compassion? And not only do I intellectually know this, how well developed are these qualities within myself? Same too, if the practitioner feels the people they're going to engage with will respond well to the presentation on reality, then they need to ask, how well do I understand reality? How well have I cultivated a wisdom understanding emptiness or selflessness? And likewise with definite emergence and all other qualities. The practitioner needs to look at themselves. To what extent have I gathered knowledge and transformation based on that knowledge?
데니게 삼다이데 데니게 냠는 능한 디게다 Lasan namda güle ge saje du samdan le kabla jisang korong güle jam ni je dan lasan namda güle ge de dokwa güle ge de nyam yo je den tu go ba dene za da dene ge chasan do den tu ne su du se da de ngarang le dene chasan den tu ye yuen de ngarang le min du da de ngal da de nya so ngal de min du wa jisang ge de ne chi tu ye min du jisang semjin tham jo ko ye du ngal ya zhe de ni da de ne ko ngal ya chi tu ye ge de che shul ma so de yuen de chang min du 지난데 이 연대는 술을 요래서는 전주선바들의 요래서는 전주선바로 요래대 차신 차와 차상 튕긴 차상 어디요 말했어. 그래서 전주선바들 녀몽바 빵바 있네 전주선바 야 도고 토르시네 녀몽바네 안내지 가서 우리 바차디 녀몽 바차마바 디기 추나요래 디 추chen 노트 용고래서 제가 노트 차상 매바데 가서 다 상이래샤스 제가 너를 찾아매봐 샘진에 감나 뭐봐 지다와 신의 경연대야 상계래 최냠는 차상 튕긴 차상 좀 되게 상계래 뒤건지 질러 띵고가 내가 냈더니 야가 여봐 데니스 켐바대 상계래 제사다 상계세디 데니게 연대 샘진 탐지 고유 동을 자야다 탑람 차상 땡투에 상계마도 민두 데네 인상 당에 데네 인사다 상계고 와도 마던데 탑민두 샘베기다 샘슈디 리고다 데네 삼당도 소소라 데지 샘잔들 코위 동안에 자고도 네 지긴 세베 샘슈디 데네 제투고 여바데 샘슈디 게여도 샘슈 인도 여바데 인도 여도 다 연대는 알아 상미도 연대는 알아고도 세데 지상에 상계고 봐 토바 제고도 데 마던데 디기민두 샘베 삼당 데네 인급 게제 데네 샘잔 탐지도 상계고 봐 토바 지 세베게 네 자주 샘기야데 어두슨 이거 해지래
The level of practitioner being presented here is someone who's generated the altruistic attitude of universal responsibility. Therefore, they will have a vast number of qualities already cultivated, such as love and compassion. But they here are taking a very honest look at themselves, and they are doing so because of the sincerity and the strength of their determination to benefit others. That sincerity to benefit others and the strength of their determination to benefit others guides them to look very honestly at themselves. And they will recognize, whilst I have developed love and compassion, an altruistic attitude of universal responsibility, these are not far from fully developed. Moreover, I can point to so many other qualities that I am yet to develop. So I have a vast number that I have developed, but they are far from being fully developed, and there are others still to be developed. So I lack this. These impede these lack of fully developed qualities as well as undeveloped qualities impede the benefit I can bring to others. Who has fully developed qualities? Who can be of greatest benefit to others? Certainly, bodhisattvas can be of far greater benefit to myself, but amongst bodhisattvas, there are those who are still afflicted. They haven't yet abandoned afflictions. There are others, and therefore they have limitations, quite severe limitations. Then there are other bodhisattvas who have abandoned their afflictions and therefore do not have such coarse limitations, but their wisdom, their consciousnesses are still obscured by the imprints, the stains of their afflictions. So therefore, they still have limitations to their qualities. It's only a Buddha. It's only a Buddha, perfectly developed being, who has a mind that is completely freed from all faults, separated from each fault entirely, and developed perfectly each and every good quality. In other words, it's only a Buddha that has an omniscient consciousness. Buddha, and a Buddha alone, has the capacity to perfectly engage with others in accordance with their own individual dispositions and spiritual background. Only a Buddha. Therefore, I must become a Buddha. I have to become a Buddha. And this is now being expressed not just as mere words, but with deep determination, with sincerity, and a level of conviction that is unwavering. I need to develop my qualities to the level of perfection, and thereby also completely eradicate every false, coarse and subtle and even trace of a fault, and in this way, become a perfected being, an omniscient being, and then I can be of unparalleled benefit to others. I will become a Buddha for their sake. And this is where bodhicitta is generated.
Kenche sosule yende yebe tone and ma lamden de la manorwa machuba gorem machuba da ma lache me ba je shi song to de da sang yema do mindu de zang sang je ko ma to de tab mindu sembege de di injang smje tham ji ge de da sang je ko ba to ba ji yin se be chen shu semje de do sin yong ko le se song ra.
Again here, this generation of bodhicitta comes from a combination of two things, recognizing what one has achieved. So this isn't deprecated, but recognizing what is yet still to be achieved. So what one has achieved amongst a variety of qualities is this such as love, compassion, and wisdom, is the determination to benefit others in the most meaningful of ways, to guide them to attain their own enlightenment. So one has achieved this and many companion qualities, but one lacks perfection. There are still, all these qualities need still to be developed far further, and therefore one gives rise to the genuine determination to become a Buddha for the sake of others.
Kisi kune menga dunyu kone du su che wore se da ndomba ni ko shi go ro da kyong na sam na la ya ran shin ji jiwa shi go ro da yong gu ro ji ji ne de kyong she ya di kyong ge di tunjin de chasan som ne shi go de tunjin ma som ba shi go re se ji sam no na lo ko su gung yong gu ro da.
I imagine sitting here that teaching what I've just taught, as well as the other teachings that you've received from me. I'm thinking of most recently, we've extensively looked at the presentation on emptiness. And now, over the last, this is our third weekend, looking at the cultivation of bodhicitta through the 6 causes. You'll be thinking, so myself as the presenter of this, from what level of expertise am I presenting this? It would be expected that such a thought would arise. From what level of experience or knowledge and experience is Geshe teaching from?
Sungje mangbo xue de bede mo teba mangbo che da ndona de le de se sam da de ji gung ko re ma do alia di zu cha sang ge nyam nyon to ko gyule ge ne nge shi go ma de da de ngan zo yi di de postman ro chi re postman de ping se de jaram che de de sung sha be jin na le de la me de sung sha se de re sha se de yi ge de pe yi ji le yi kyo yi le sha de ma do yi do na ka re ga ne sti ye de ha go ma de na shi ne de se de de sung do de re do se be ga da du shi ne chödogo sode du shi ne da de re sha se ga se ne di ji dang yi ho ne da lo mang gui rin le ya töba mang bo che ro töba mang bo che be ge da ni su de ka kan sam ro cha go go ro ba de re sa de ya ji da sam ro de se sta le de to bo ju le me ge ne ya ka bre sam de se sta ge ro sam ju ro ji de se yo ro ba ni to ne shu ro ma cha sa da nga di su ju le to ba ge nya me ha ho to ne shi go ma che sa de ne za nge she de le da da ma di ba da no thui da de ne yong gu ro.
So over the course of this lifetime, I've heard a tremendous number of teachings. I've studied well. And also on occasion, I have reflected on the teachings that I have studied. But I am yet to gain a realization of these teachings. So therefore, I liken myself to a postman, in that I'm like a postie delivering His Holiness's words to you. I'm as opposed to someone who is talking from genuine realization. So therefore, take the teachings from me in the the manner that I'm offering them with sincerity and based on my knowledge and some reflection. But for sure, it's not coming from a point of perfection, a mind that is perfected. Therefore, necessarily, there will be faults in my presentation.
아니 되는게 마셔야될 남사 인들의 결혼 속에 심주 채워야다 근데 제바 채워야다 이게 전부 채워야 딱다 레도 민도사다 데플로야래 아니야 지게 라마신다다 되는게 전에 송체돼 되는게 예 직퇴비기 되시네 아니 소소라는 게 어다 딱다 레도 민도사다 되는게 딱다지 매바네 어다디 딱다 심는 너를 배 독자르셔 삼다스가요 말에 그래서 어다디 And
the way you should take what I've just said is that, therefore, you each have an individual responsibility to read broadly, to receive teachings from other lamas, and accompanying this, think for yourselves, investigate, think for yourselves. And if you see a contradiction, no need to get overly excited by this, no need to point fingers. This is how it is. But you need to think for yourselves, study broadly.
퇴바다 됐어 직 퇴바 망보 제바다 되니게 돈에 내 기회신에서 망보 퇴바다 소속이 됐어서 삼다샤베 아지도 두시네다 되네되네 송구도 세드마 제셔마 두시네 슈고래.
That all being said, I really have received extensive teachings from my own lamas and also reflected to some degree on those.
아디네 자당하는 중에 제가 잠니지게 내가 저게 넘긴다다 잠니지 검네 하산 남다고 된 전주심 공부를 해야지 저 돌도시나 되네지지에서 그 캔슬 마선 디디레스 마 자주지기로 이나 닝지 잠니지게 세위 제라 하산 남다게 되래 삼로로 되스카가 갈강좀 제바로 제네 삼당거대 뒤중으로 다 하산 남다게 세위 제라 전주심 마게 빨아들래 삼마보지 제바를 마선나 주 갈래 용구도 디 간스빵 투브서래 간에 제거서베 제가 삼론 마선나 데데 제바 망고 제네 디니 제바 제네 우이 니수디 파 통요도 디니 신의 자주심 얘기 곧 다디 제데 겐세 당벌이야와 제자데 조사데 딱와全部 전에 디니 마 조사 딱와 마선 근데 번이 로고스나 강바 접신 추난마 주시시 얘기가요와 제자 디니 마 조사 당벌 조고도 선배 삼로게 대 삼로게 데 조사 간에 주야고 심주지에 조사 야가데 디니 두어서 배 삼 통소데 디니 조사 디가라 강바자요와 어디 나신 제자 잠니제 하산 남다게 세외 제라 전신 마게 발데 제바제다 삼로 나타디 망고지 고고 제바제 삼다 디니 제바제네 니서 하고에도 디니 신의 니바들이야 전신 게디 고 디기 제바제나 하고에도 디기 셈슈를 마 인도를 마서는 다 전신 마 산지고 마마던데 타민도 세비게 나고 뒤엔데 통에도 디토베야기 돈달 지지기로 배지 어디 용고래 제가 되는 인자 디바라들이야 삼났던 거다 제바제가 거다 예치 못 채고래 두스는 거 와는 냠는 제가 주 코로도 두스는 거 와다.
The further point that from what I've been saying in this teaching as well as many times that I hope it really is clear that in order to actually transform one's way of thinking, one has to engage in the sequence of gathering knowledge and reflecting on that knowledge based on reasons. The greater the quantity of knowledge, the greater the basis one has to reflect, and therefore the deeper one's reflection will go. But one has to reflect on reasoning. So one needs knowledge to be able to employ many reasonings, but one still has to engage in reflection based on reasonings, not just a mere aspiration or expression of words, but analytical reflection. Analytical reflection. This is imperative. And this is how you live your lives. Whenever you notice that something is wrong or could be better, you think, why? And when you have you've identified a cause, you think, and what can I do about it? This is how we live our lives. And this is the same here in the Dharma. So just like in your own life, if you need to go, you are somewhere and you think, actually, I really need to be somewhere else, then you've recognized that something needs to change. The next thought is, how do I get to where I want to be? And you come up with a method. And that method, if it's just the first thought that comes into mind and you don't think any further, one's not necessarily going to engage with it, or if one does, one will very likely give up. But if one has thought well about both the need to achieve one's goal, as well as how this method will bring you there, it's much easier to overcome all the hardships and obstacles one encounters. So this is how you live your lives, and that is how we need to approach the Dharma if your wish is to transform your mind. If your wish is to transform your mind. Because all too often, I'm aware that a presentation such as a topic of the 6 causes leading to the one effect, it can sound like there's this ladder, you go from here to there, to there, to there, to there, and it's done. And especially with this 6th cause, that of the altruistic attitude of universal responsibility, it's often presented very briefly, whereas here I've taken more time on this. Because the reality is, even when one has developed these incredible minds of love and compassion, one is still at distance from generating bodhicitta. The altruistic attitude of universal responsibility isn't a step one just glosses through and it's done. One needs here too to engage in extensive reflection in order to progress from love and compassion to the generation of bodhicitta. So therefore, the key point to take here is that one needs to gather knowledge and reflect. The more knowledge one has, the deeper one's reflections will go, but one needs to reflect well, continuously, repeatedly, over a sustained period. And this is the case with every stage of training.
Dimi doji lamga dewa saa che, en saa sompa ina la sompa ina, nga zo samna na, moda dimi dinga kudu sampe, samna jibu tangba zamji, moda dimi de rayas kayo marwa. Che zata nga dinga kudu sampe, samna tangba chayla, zega ruwa, zego ruwa da, zena, yana nye, yana ta, mindu san ta cheba chungo da, zena, yana nye yungu ruwa da. Di nanshi re, nga, 제상 두신의 제바 마제바에는 우인이 수도 통고 말아. 제상 두신의 제바제 가니스 셈전 한저 고외 동안에 가니스 저고도 탑시 가니스 저고도 가르가르 고고도 두수 제바제도 갑라 데니 제바제도 셈전 저 고외 동안에 저 데니스 저고도와 셈비 탑람디 통용고로와 세메 어디니 레도와 셈베 냐바니고로와 쟁 데니게 통용도 갑라 데니 통해도 네 나신지 소소에 냠는 제샤바나 데 다다 리그로와 제가 따심자한테 고외 동안을 저고 선배 상지고와 톱고 선배게 삼는시 따제 제바 가야 마제나 가니스 토고 그래 토베알 가라가라 보고 그래서 돼 신고 말 마신거네 디 냠는데 다다 제도 말 맞이나 다다 하고도 말 제가 디네서 제바 제데 먼저 당보 제바데 제바지 니수도 우이니도 하고 여도 데니게다 삼로디 파 곰체네 데니 조금체 뉴바체 곰체 뉴바체 다야데 고거래 진짜 제곰다 조금 이가 고마도 제곰체 삼로균에 마다하지 데데 믹숨되어 잠지 집보기다 내수신에 대가래 하고로 와 당아 지금 지소 나라다가로 와 지 가리네 지게 칼라스에나지 칼라 신부지 소고네 쇠단의 장고로 소소 장나 신길마도 맞잖아 신 칼라 신부소야 신말에 디나신에 잘라 가르 강보 쇠베네 강보 쇠단의 장고고 장나 강보 쇠단 신길에 맞잖아 강보 쇠단 신바 강보야 디나신 당아도 가리네 지소나리아 당보 장고도와 장제 어디네디네 레도와 선배 장제 소소 냠냠 요소도 아니 디카르 쇠베네 주투 쇠투고로 맞잖아 강보 쇠 디용그랭아 비기도와 대 강보소에게 냠냠 메디겐 혹시 어떤 게 있어요? 이 수기 있어야 돼서 안직부지 야스 마루리도 라 야스 마리도 야 다다 균에서 마도 저선 철라 마무로야 되네 요래 돼 통야
If you imagine yourself out somewhere and you walk back to your car and you lose your key. You drop it somewhere, perhaps down an embankment. You have a choice. You can either make a strong aspiration, may my key reappear before me, may standing here, may I just see it, or you can actually do something and look for your key. You've dropped it, now you need to find it. So too, one needs to, when one recognizes that something can be improved, can be developed, one needs to then investigate and do something about it. So in our context here, what I'm encouraging you to do once again is to think for yourselves. Don't merely accept what's given to you, but investigate, analyze, coming to see the validity of the Dharma presentation for yourself. A mere acceptance based on faith in the teacher or the teachings is insufficient to transform one's mind. One needs to apply oneself through investigation to develop transformative realization. Then and only then will one genuinely apply oneself to cultivating a path and to being of great benefit to others. Because the reality is, we have the wish to benefit others, to ease their suffering, to bring happiness into the lives of others. We have this wish. But if we lack knowledge, and in particular, experiential knowledge, inner transformation based on knowledge, how can we really identify the causes of suffering in others when we haven't identified it in ourselves? How can we, therefore, guide others in how to overcome those causes when we are yet to do that within ourselves? Therefore, we need broad knowledge, deep knowledge, and integrate that through analytical reflection. An analytical reflection, as I've also presented before, needs to be accompanied by placement meditation, where one analyzes and then abides on the realization. Analyzes and abides. These two working together in tandem, in harmony. This is required to bring about transformation. So you're being encouraged here to do two things. Gather knowledge and integrate that knowledge. If you have no knowledge, there's nothing to integrate. If you don't integrate your knowledge, it remains merely intellectual. One can say many profound things, but one will know one's mind is yet to be transformed. So therefore, these two together, accumulation of knowledge, and whilst it's being accumulated, it needs to be integrated. And the way of integrating it is through meditating with reasoning, both in meditation and thinking throughout one's day, using reasoning, combining in meditation analytical with placement meditation. What I'm saying here is really nothing radical. It is how you live your lives. I'm sure all of you, or at least many of you, can make some delicious dishes. All of those dishes, you first learned how to make it, and then you did so. And now you are skilled in making those particular delicious foods. Likewise, one can imagine someone who has the wish to build a house, but has no knowledge and no experience based on knowledge, but they have perhaps an overconfidence, and they set out building a house. Who's going to want to live in that house? It's going to fall down, and their money and time will have been wasted. We live our lives in this way, gathering knowledge, gaining skill based on that knowledge, and then applying ourselves, hopefully in a way to benefit others. And this is what we need, the approach we need to take to the Dharma.
sim jongyu thone nyamle jele sim juwa tayagi tanga ju nyamle jebala jeza chue nyamle cheside sim juwa taya thone tanga ju duchine nyamle jebala karosne jeza dangbo thyo gore che dangbo thyo thye de gechi mo dangbo din dis mangbo thye de gechi mo res jeza thye sam thye ba se Dine tübige tüba zamyi diyor marda tüne şaşana ya yargı durum jotuya mar. Cizan tüne tübü döndela yani yan도 sam당 고레지. Cizan du스니 yani yan도 sam당스 제바 차야지 다. 이게 제바 차야 돼. sam당도 디제네 가래 데데 가래 데네 가래 제바 차 sam당도 디는 외니 수도 된다데 하고 온 거래지. 제 tüba sam바지. Dine 하고도 dine gomgo 그래서 제가 gom야 그래서 dine yargı du고 그래서 제가 당보 퇴고 그래서 퇴제 dine 퇴비게 된다라 야네 야도 삼다 된다데 라티레샤서 라퇴요도 dine gomgo 그래서 제가 퇴삼 곰숨세야 되는 중에 단 냠는 제알이야 예침부지야 돼 된다디래
in the Buddha Dharma, the Buddha himself presented many times the great importance of hearing, reflecting, and meditating. And this now is what I'm encouraging you to continue to do. So as I mentioned last night, the meaning of Buddha's practice is to transform your own mind, to train one's own mind. And how to do so is through the sequence of hearing, reflecting, and meditating. So here there's a translator to say this word hearing in this context has the dual meaning of hearing as well as studying. So the gathering of knowledge and putting it in mind, keeping it in mind so it's retained. So this is the meaning of hearing in this context. Then the second level, the second step, which is its companion, they're done together, is that of reflecting. And here it's usually translated as reflecting or contemplating. So this shows analytical meditation. The same word that in this context is translated as reflecting or contemplating, in other contexts, the common context just means thinking. So this shows that one needs to think about what one has heard. And thinking is not something one solely does on a cushion, but throughout the day. So therefore, when you hear about hearing, reflecting, and meditating, understand that hearing means also study, it means retaining what one hears or reads. Reflecting means reflecting or contemplating, but also thinking. So it's something that is analytical and done on the meditation cushion and throughout one's day. These two are the foundation. Eventually one is then developed to engage in actual meditation. This is the sequence to transform, the sequence of development to transform one's mind.
Dine zada tebadi gom yabala dunda samlo tangde samgi dunda hawa samjungu gore samjungu bala teba gore jesa din teba ko za tya da suzele tyo gore sin de labde chi yin zelu chik tyo gore jesa dangbo na za lamrin na ya nyamnen jeta ge rimba du che song de ga gewi shin de su dangbo song jesa di teba chi gewi shin be ma ze ge chi mo ye se da jesa la pengen chi zane gogor ma do she jike goya yo ma de jike ha ji gese ro nya de sa ne gese de nya yo ro wa da di nya ba na di zam ji nya ba zam ji ha zo ta ta ra che du ma je sa de za ge wi xin yin ji le de go go ya de ge chi mo shi re sa de ge wi xin yin de an de go re sa de dang bo ho no je sa nyam leng dang bo ko she de ge wi xin yin de su sa sun ya di ro.
The sequence of hearing and reflecting and meditating is crucial. So meditation, as I've said several times, involves analysis, thinking. So there we see the link, also with reflection. And for one to reflect, to contemplate, to think, one requires knowledge to think on, to reflect on. Hence the need to hear, to study, to retain knowledge in one's mind. And then from whom should one receive knowledge? Here, the Buddha was very clear. Not just from anyone, but from spiritual teachers, qualified spiritual teachers. Hence, at the outset of the sequence of trainings in the Lama, one starts with a spiritual teacher.
Gen imba zeng digo mare gen de la kishu din changwa gugure se de de gapne shebege da de nyamlen cheba ina da dinige lama de la kishu din changwa gugure sa da da nga ga nyamlen che na dine lama de la kishu din changwa gugure se de jiza la mi ki yun de anti ma sung gore jiza da 도시네 Geshe Thubten Rabten 고글에 써야 돼. 안주기 라메 템비 라메 연대디기 봐서야 돼. 달람름 나서야 돼. 디서와 계신 거지. 그래서네 디마 말롭트 제발라 디 롭트 제라디 야고지 마주나 디고말 되지 시셔서 하지서 디네자 라마티레 연대디지 고글에 롭트 제라.
The spiritual teachers one relies on, they need to be qualified to teach a particular topic, qualified in the particular topic of sutra or the particular topic of tantra. This is important. If one tries to go it alone or relying on a teacher who's not qualified, one's desired result cannot be achieved.
예 야고 여바 중에 지금 말네 로마디에 야고 고고래서 로메 칭이 송고 지사 로마데래 Geshe Thubten 시대 바치고 고래서 로메기 냠는지 할래 로메기 Geshe 마 되는 고고래서 바 송고로 와들름나래요.
In the Lamrim, the varying qualities of the teacher are explicitly presented, but the teacher alone does not require qualities, so too does the student.
지사다 라마 야고 여바지다 디 로마니디 로마디 베지게 야 칭이 창화 지여베네 데네 라미 마송 로메 냠는 제제 데네 다다로지 야고 차이게 요고 야게 줘야 될냐 나지 다다 차거로 와지 라마 야고 여나 야 지금 로메원에 지 샤라샤라 제마투게 진네 네 야게 줘야 갈래 하고로 야 로마 심지 침부지네 라미원에 마 랍사디게 다다로지 랍투만 야지 야게 줘야 갈래 하고로 지제산 라마다 로메 라메기 Geshe 로메 Geshe 되는 고래 세디 지산 라마 세디 기 침보래 세디 냠네 제르디 고래 세디 기 침부지단 들어와 디네서데 디로와 당한주게 지속이 다 최기 계시 마셔베네 지속이 연된 가르치라베네 랍칸디 연지메나 네 지게 야고 뿌이다고 신해야 되게 도보도 되었을 때 신경이 돼 뿌이다고 야고 신해야 되게 갈 하고로 와.
The qualities of the teacher and student both are identified or laid out in the Lamrim. And for one's desired spiritual transformation to come about, this dependency of a qualified teacher and a qualified or genuine student needs to come together. When they do, rapid spiritual development will follow. If either is missing, either the teacher is not qualified or the student is not qualified or not genuine, spiritual development will not come about quickly. And this is similar to your experiences in society. If one thinks of a general level of education one wants to achieve or a particular skill one wants to develop, one needs someone to guide one, to teach one, to train one. And if the person you're relying on is not particularly developed, how are you going to become skilled yourself?
In Dumjixiao, and Yama Magic Dusine Chayaru, Pejitune Chayaru, Jerwa Chaya Jerwa. Jezan Koron Yagura Sing Mevache, Pasio Lamachi Chayajidu, the Numi Lama Yagushorwa, the Koran, Chayajidu. The Korea Tango Kishimari, the Quirk and the Chidu, some Betane to Shigo Regere. Jezan do Chidigalia and Pajo Lamadi do Chidu, do a separate lines to Sicily Lawa do Shero. Na Pajogi Betagan do Sine, then the Shever Hesere. Jezan called Lama Martin by Japan Beta Jedu, no root in the show or
To give a little illustration, if a student who doesn't know how to do the various mudras and wants to learn, they rely on their teacher, and they know their teacher is a reliable teacher, and so they just watch the teacher perform the mudras, probably in a puja, and the teacher now hasn't been requested to teach the mudras. The student rather is following the example of what the teacher is presenting. So the teacher is doing the puja, doing the mudras, and then their head's a bit itchy, so they scratches their head, and the student's watching and learning. They okay, you do like this, and you do like this, and then you continue like that, and this is how they learn, and they end up making an error.
제가 데니기 아주게 베타로 시베 데니 베타시 제베나 다다를 지지하고 맞으나 되는 노트 쉬어야게 되는 뭐 용거로와 되는 자당아주 기회 신인 된거에 기침부에 생진미지다 파기시지고야다 소속에 나올려 검접되기 근데 또 세나 소속이 삼로 소와나 가리리고야 라말야 디아다 되는 돈에 다 기침부 쉬우려야 돼 제대 둠전지로다 만으로 용하다 만으로다 마주바 용해야 되던다 지로와
It's of great importance that one relies genuinely, sincerely on one's teacher to do two things: receive the knowledge that's being imparted, and the companion to that, to be guided in how to integrate that within oneself. Moreover, it's important that one, from one's own side, is open and receptive, but also from the teacher's side, that they are qualified to impart knowledge and guidance. Because one doesn't only want to gather some knowledge and gather some inner qualities, but one needs to do so in a way that's unmistaken, that's flawless, not like in the previous example. We can conclude there for the morning, but there's still some time left, so if you have questions, then feel free to ask.
Geshe mentioned something about will last night, and it's just a question that I've been presented with people that a couple of people that haven't really studied very deeply, sort of saying, holding the idea that there's no free will, So my understanding is that there is free will, but then also there's a lot of, without the, I can sort of see that, there's just this question because there's, I know there's definitely free will, but how much is there, because it's, karma and who you meet, but the Buddhas are meeting you when you're ready, so it's almost like, do we choose virtue ourselves ever, or is it the influence? It's sort of, because I think the two people that had mentioned there was no free will, to me, were doing so quite sincerely, not flippantly. So, I've never had any doubt that there's free will, but maybe now it's, there's, I'd like to hear Geshe's point of view.
I'm not going to repeat all that back to you, but I'll repeat it together, but it's just a question on free will. Yeah.
지난 저기 라완 유메세데 지난 지tin 지소나야 말 지지제 탑나 라완 유세데 삼다나 지용고로와但俺这个南区那呢，他让越美这些的，在三大都是开发都是有点什么多，但这边的基础哪里呢？俺看起呢，俺让越噻，这个用过了吧的，他不越让越噻的，但俺这个俺这个写的了呀，变成俺这个毛这下边呢，毛这也做个的，用做是毛这可能了呀，可能让他呢主要有的是呢。이요 말와 그래서네 고이를 줘야 돼 뭐다 제보기 원규진 주고 이런 줘야 돼 뭐다 제기 원규진 주고 마도 뭐다 코로나야 나대두기 세대 셰메로와 맨 원규메 제가 되네로와 이 나시 가 저기 류기 지가 가리는 것은 디 제부디 가는 경우는 귤라 라완 귤 유톱기 기고마도 귤라 때네 기고마도 귤라 마템바제 제부디 요하요 말아 디기세디 요하메라와 지산 디네에서 당지 간제량아서 라완 세디 요 말에 세디 지현라 마되바제 요하디 요 말에서 오다가서 아주 지 류기 넘규이네 낭셈데 때네 용고래 저게 현실에 뛰네 용구마다 현실에 맞춰봐도 요 말해서 아주 낭비 최나라 해야지然后 요 말해서 해야 되리다 현실에 끼엔 규단 끼 현실에 뛰네 용구마다 현실에 맞춰봐도 요 말해서 해야 되리래.
Yeah, I imagine the misunderstanding comes from the way the term is used in society and in the Dharma. So in society, there's a discussion about whether we have free will or freedom, or not. But it's my understanding that the general understanding of this in society differs from the presentation in the Buddha. So in our general way of discussing, and we will say it too, I have freedom or I have free will. I can do this, I can do that. It's my decision. And this is how we talk. And this is fine. But this is the way the term freedom or free will, it's the same word, is utilized in society. But the way we understand it from the Dharma is perhaps through an illustration I often use. A car, if it is going to go left or right, that going of left or right, the car itself has no control over. It requires the driver to take it left or right. So we would say that the car is going left or right has come out in dependence on the driver. Likewise, the body that we have, we had no freedom over. We had no free will choosing this body. Likewise, our happiness, we also have no free will or freedom over having happiness or attaining happiness, experiencing happiness. Why is that? Because this body we have came about in dependence on causes, and the happiness that we experience comes about in dependence on causes. So therefore, the meaning of freedom/free will in our Buddhist context is that if we had freedom or free will, our desired results would not require causes. They would not come about in dependence on causes. But because they are dependent on causes, because the result is dependent on causes, we do not freely choose or attain that result. So therefore, that the lack of freedom, the lack of free will, means dependency. Things are attained not freely, but dependently. So the terminology is utilized differently in society than what it means in the Dharma.
So there is that meeting in a way of, at a certain, fortunate stage, the right teacher and the right student, there's both external and internal, choosing freedom, having free will, can lead to freedom, right? So there is inner and outer conditions to be free. So there's outer and inner conditions to be free. And free will is something that we get when we attain the result. If freedom is the result, free will is the result. That's what he's saying.
Dini kung dodu labna pelche dunda dile ngaso sangye du dedu ngaso rangwan gyore pe kung di labna songye pelche dedi dunda ke kaze kongi ngaso getruk dan lama konso geldu deni de kienjene rangwan topki yores kini di dan kena sumye dan geldare karensa deni gyuyore dendrode yini ne samna di döndak sangye yin du kasi konde tamade di drepude de rangwan rebe ne jetsange samna kompa chi sangye ke kola samya
Jida dan jugi sangye goban tob yodu sangye goban tob sangye koron rangwa rebe sene rangwa maro karasan koro gyuli ten wa ni gyuli ten ne sangye chaba gyuli ma ten ba sangye chayo maro nyomo ba pang ba le ten ne ko sang cha wa jida nyomo ba cha de che pang yo sangye chaba de di ma do ne ma ba na di pang ya de nyembo le ting go wa jida pang ne sangye ma ba na sangye chayo ma jida sangye de yang rāngwā mārē, kō jīn mārē. Dī nāshīn, sāngjī kī chū sōngyā dīyā rāngwā mārē, kōrā chāsāng kīng kōrā rāngwā mārē, dūshā lī tīng kōrē, dūshā. Chū xēsā lī tīng kōrē, chū xēsā mē nā chū mē rūwa. Chū sōngyā dīyā chū xēsā lī tīng, dūshā lī tīng kōrē. Chāsāng dīyā dīyā bā dīyā, ngī dī yākshō rī xēyā mā dī lā kō kham nā mē bā tūmbā dīyā lī tīng kōrē. Sāngjī kōrā yā rāngwā yō mārē, xianle dian ba jue sanji gi jawa jeba de ramong tone jawa jeba xianle dian de jawa jigo sanji chue song ya de xian dian de ji chue song ma de ma de ba jia me de tu jizan tu samlo se de tu gare sam dang gore xian yi dian gan tu gore sam sa de jizan xian yi dian gan tu se xian le due gu tu xian me na xian yi dian gan tu sam dai hua yo ma ro de chasan dian dian ma de ji dian ba ma to sangye na de gare yi bi ne nga zo yue ba che ta ji le xian ji le dian ne yong gu ma de ma dian ba zao yi ne yo ma dian ba jue ba na rang wa le da yo ma le da de rang wa yo ma le se de gare gu gu se xian ji le ma due ba yo ma le se de gu gu le ma de nga ji so ge rang wa se de le gua yo ma le gu gu ma le.
So the meaning of freedom or free will, it's the same word, yeah, freedom, free will. In society and in the Buddha Dharma it differs. So before I answer your question, I'll repeat, the meaning of freedom in the Buddha Dharma is not dependent. So what is not dependent would be free. Everything is dependent. The attainment of Buddhahood is dependent. Causes have to be accumulated, purification and accumulation. A Buddha, an Arya Buddha, an individual Buddha, also is not free. Because if the Buddha were free, Buddha would not be interdependent, would not be dependent on causes. So for example, for a Buddha to teach the Dharma, there requires the cause for the teaching of sentient beings, suffering sentient beings. So therefore, the teaching of Dharma is not dependent. What and how is taught is not dependent. Is not free. Is rather dependent on the individual disposition of the beings. So therefore, and even the Buddhas, and then I checked with Genda, even the Buddhas thinking, their mind of the Buddha, is that not free? He said, if it were free, it would be dependent, so it wouldn't be influenced by things. Which would mean, but in reality, the Buddha thinks independent on the fulfilling the needs of the beings, of beings. So therefore, even the Buddha's mind is dependent and therefore is not free. So therefore this is quite different from how we utilize it in society.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's quite radical. Yeah.